सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। We are in the 21st shloka. Those of you who have a different numbering system, it would start with Marichir Damano Hamsaha. So please repeat after me. Marichir Damano Hamsaha, Marichir Damano Hamsaha, Suparno Bhujagotamaha, Hiranyanabhasutapaha, Hiranyanabhasutapaha, Padmanabha Prajapadihi. So as we move forward, Marichihi Damanaha Hamsaha Suparnaha Bhujagotamaha. Marichihi, Marichihi, that which is, it is not Maricha, it is Marichihi. As I have been explaining, a few words, a few spellings here and there, the meaning can be drastically different. So, Gada, Gadha, and things like that, we have seen. So, it is Marichihi. Marichihi, that which is illumining or self-illumining by nature. That which is self-illumining by nature, which does not require any other point of reference or point of guidance. Like for example, if you ask your child, today being a cloudy day outside, if you go ask your child and say, you see if there is sun outside. So the child asks, how does the sun look? He says, it will be bright, glowing outside. Do you require a proof, any other proof to illumine that sun? It is self-illumining. It is that self-illumining because of which we see. Sometimes by mistake we even conclude that the sun is covered. Sun in fact is so huge and so illumining that the sun can never be covered. But there are clouds. So the clouds are not covering the sun. They are covering our vision. And the amazing part of this entire equation is, even those clouds which are covering our vision are visible in his illumination. As the sun, so is the self. Self or Paramatma, Atma or Paramatma, that which does not require proof of existence. It is self-illumining. Now what does it mean? Like many times, very few times I have travelled in the bus system or the train system here that they have. The bus system that is still there in the part of Dallas where the ashram is and I live, couple of times that I ended up using it. If you do not know the place, if you do not know the route, and if you are blindly following the announcements made by the driver, the one who is driving it, I was confused many times. Confused because what was being announced was not clearly understood. He had a thick, they call it Ebonics, I believe, a thick, a different kind of an accent, not even American, it's a totally different kind of accent to itself. It was very difficult for me to follow. So when I'm traveling from one place to the other, how do I know I have reached that place? Either I have to keep following the road signs. In India, it is an easy task because there are so many shops and every shop has an address underneath, and the address very clearly displays what town or city or village it is. So you don't need to ask anybody. So whenever I traveled, I used to quickly make friends with the one that is sitting along with me and announce, are you going beyond this wherever I have to get down? I said, yeah. So if so, can you please tell me? I said, no, the driver will announce. I said, tried that. Can't understand what he says. So kindly if you can help me out. So when we don't know the destination, we are always anxious. Have I reached? Have I crossed that? Have I gone beyond? Do I have to find another means to come back? There's always this anxiety. So for the spiritual seekers, when they are on this path of self-realization, and we end up questioning, how do I know if I have realized or not? Don't worry. It will be self-evident because it is self-illumining. Marichihi. But in order to reach to that state of self-illumination, we need to find the method. So what is the method? So the method, he says, there are two meanings for this particular word. Damanaha, marichir damanaha, marichir damano hamsaha. Damanaha. Damana is to resist, control, or to restrain. Various meanings. Now the meaning when it's applied, it has got a couple of applications. The first application is, we need to control and find restraint in our emotions, feelings, thoughts, ideas. And that too only in the initial stages. Presently, let's take an example. What is the most profound emotion that we usually get sway under? Name an emotion. Sadness. Sadness, anger, grief, misery, various kinds of emotions. When these emotions are overwhelming, what happens is we get completely drowned under them. So as the emotion flows, where are we? We are in the flow. And once we are in the flow, there is nothing to anchor us. There is nothing that can hold us. So by the time that it takes for that emotion to flow by, subside, we are already drained. We are so lost at the end of that emotional trauma. For example, we take anger. Is that emotion of anger good or bad? Many a times we end up saying bad. Or if you understand that it, maybe this fellow is asking a trick question, you say depends. So these are the two unique answers that I keep getting. The emotion of anger as such is neither good nor bad. The goodness and badness is not the intrinsic quality of anger. If we are under the grip and control and sway of that emotion, then it is bad. If we know how to use it, then it is good. So initially when it is said damanaha, control it so that you can master it, so that you are not swept under the influence of the overwhelming emotion. Therefore, one needs to discipline and control through that discipline. Damanaha. On the other hand, there are various rishis and mahatmas. They are shown to have quite a bit of anger. And who is the famous angry young man of our Puranas? Durvasa. He is known to be so angry that people who end up serving or get an opportunity to serve him are constantly petrified. Because they do not know, they do not have a clue. What you do will make him angry, what you don't do will make him angry. But if you keenly, closely observe his life, whenever he has shown or he is shown to have, uncontrollable anger, whenever he has exhibited his uncontrollable anger. When we think that it is uncontrolled, but whenever he has expressed his anger. What is the end result of that one person on whom he has showered his anger? You may have heard the story of Ambarisha. Ambarisha was Bhagavan's devotee, and he goes and shows his anger to him. At the end, what does Ambarisha get after going through the overwhelming anger of Durvasa? He gets direct shara of Bhagavan. Anger enhances us, gives us an opportunity to find that Paramatma. Is that anger good or is that anger bad? When we get angry and we exhibit our anger on somebody, what do we give that other person? Do we give Paramatma Darshan? Nowhere close to that, right? We give pain, we give sorrow, we give misery to the other person. Therefore, our anger is bad. Durvasa's anger takes us directly to Paramatma. For 20 years, I have been trying to find that Mahatma who has got anger. Because if I irritate them, they get angry and I have a clean, bypass directly towards Paramatma. What a good deal. It's such an easy path, but it doesn't happen. I have been searching for 20 years. Our anger or our emotions which are so running vehemently, they need to be controlled because it is not productive, it is not positive. Once you know how to step out of their influence and then learn how to control it, how to balance it, and then know how to use it, the same emotion turns around to become quite a good empowering tool. So the poor emotion has nothing to do with goodness or badness. It depends purely on who uses it and how they use it. Being in balance and you use it, or being in imbalance and we get swept under it. So therefore, for every initial seeker, the first step towards self-illumination or self-realization is damanaha. Restrain yourself, discipline yourself. But what we do is we immediately compare. See them, they say they are rishis, they are mahatmas, they don't control themselves, why should you ask us to control? Their utility has gained a lot of positivity. Our utility is led to a lot of destruction, personally as well as to everybody that is around us. Therefore, damanaha, one meaning of damana. The second meaning of damana is that Paramatma, when invoked within one's own heart, he is the one who puts restraint. So, what is the method to control, restrain? Is to invoke the name of the Lord when we are going through the traumatic effects of our own emotions. See, the japa that is being taught is such a sacred, such a beautiful method. But instead of understanding its beauty, we use it for a marathon. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. What are you doing? I am doing japa. That is not called japa, that is called marathon. So what does japa mean? That beautiful method, that sacred method, that scientific method by which we can easily remove ourselves from the flow of our own emotional onslaught, which is being tied down to our own breathing. So what do you do whenever you find yourself in quite a traumatic effect or the onslaught of our own emotions? Sit back. Swamiji, if I could sit back. In order to be able to apply this method during the onslaught of the emotions, this should be a handy practiced tool. You cannot carry a dagger or a sword thinking that I will start learning how to use it if somebody attacks me. That will be stupid. All these, what do they call them? Ninja warriors. They go through such intense training of years and years of practice. And after that practice and they have mastered it, every day they spend time on keeping their practice and skill up to the mark. Don't they do it? Similarly, even in our the japa has to be a method which has already been put into practice for considerable amount of time. The first thing is, don't try to apply it during the onslaught of emotions. Try to practice it before that. So make sure that every single day there is the constant practice, every day at least morning and evening 10 minutes. Can't we find 10 minutes? How much time do we spend on washing, cleaning and maintaining this body? How much time do we spend in the shower? 5 minutes to 10 minutes max? I'm just assuming. There are sometimes parents are like, banging on the door. Enough, come out now. So 5 to 10 minutes on an average. Don't we? And then to maintain it, food, at least half an hour, 3 slots, 1.5 hours. I'm not including the rest part of it. The beautification part of it, at least 2-3 times a day. I'm just guessing about it. Another 5-10 minutes. All that I'm asking is another 10 minutes added in to keep oneself trained for those moments when this method can be applied. So at that moment when we focus on our breath, inhale slowly, and while exhaling, repeat the name of the Lord along with that breath. It gives us the capacity to immediately snap out of the influence or the effect of that emotion. And as you now constantly focus on the breathing and repetition of that name, even if you do 21 times during that onslaught, and the best part is, it is the most user-friendly technique. You don't need to carry a gadget, you don't need to find a place, you don't need to find a time, you don't need to find. All that has to happen is inside, in sync with breathing. Both are non-obvious. All that you have to do is start focusing on your breath, slow it down, and start repeating the name of the Lord. Immediately see that you can observe your own, and that is how the Nama has the effect. And in that effect of the Nama, he is recognized as Damanaha, the one who can restrain these onslaughts of emotions. Marichir Damano Hamsaha. Hamsaha is the essence of the Vedic knowledge. The entire word would be Aham Saha. But there are certain rules wherein, like in French, they have more syllables than they can pronounce. But they insist on having more syllables. And they call it, they are all silent. Similarly, there are certain rules in Sanskrit language wherein there are the vowels which can be dropped from the word. Very specific cases. And one of such specific cases, this word called Aham Saha. Aham Saha, the drops. And it becomes Ham Saha. So Aham Saha. Aham meaning I, Saha. So I, that conscious principle, is nothing but that which I have been referring as him or that. That conscious principle which I have been searching for all over the world, all over my experiences with various interactions, I finally find that Paramatma is right here in my own heart. So there are various dohas as well. He says that he started searching for, this is Kabir Das Ji, he says, he started searching for that Paramatma. Like the Kasturi Mruga. Kasturi Mruga, there is this deer, and in its navel there is this drops of amazing fragrance which gather in certain season, for which they are hunted down. And it's a very rare commodity, and the fragrance is amazing. I don't know if you have ever had the opportunity to smell the Kasturi deers. It's sold as Kasturi. And the purest of it is, it lingers around for few months. Once you open it up, in that space, it lingers around for a few months. That's the amount of intensity that it carries. Imagine that Kasturi Mruga, that deer himself, when starts smelling it, this is such a beautiful smell, and starts searching for it all over the forest. So where exactly is it? In its own self. Similarly, when we look around the world, all these various things, that which seem to give us joy, at that pinnacle moment of joy, What is happening is, it is not the vastu or the vyakti which can give us that happiness. It is at that moment the mind which is constantly restless is put to rest. At that moment when the mind becomes completely restful, what is truly our intrinsic nature gets reflected at that moment briefly. But then we start attributing that to that vastu or that vyakti, that object or that person. Therefore we always complain, this was different, long time ago when I used to love it. Nowadays I don't. Why? That experience is different, this experience is different. And more specifically, between different relationships, they say, you were quite loving then. Now you are not. At that moment, that joy or that the amount of restfulness that the mind had enjoyed reflected in different amount of joy, which may or may not get reflected at this moment. So that which we are searching for, where is it? It is right here in our own bosom, which is in our own heart. Aham Saha. And this is not a mantra to be repeated. You don't then, suddenly go, okay, this is a Maha Mantra, and this Maha Mantra is given even in the Upanishads. Therefore, sit down and Aham Saha, Aham Saha, Aham Saha. And somebody wise enough would come and say, stop this himsa of Aham Saha. I have given this example even earlier. Do you know your gender? Not a trick question. A simple question. Do you know your gender? Yes? Good. Go home, do this experiment on somebody else. Make sure they are not somebody that can overpower you. First, caution. Second, make sure that they are in deep sleep. Third step, suddenly wake them up and ask them their gender. You may think it is a foolish thing. I have experimented it with all ages. When I had experimented it, it was power of yellow. I was still a brahmachari. So they almost getting angry. But brahmachari, what can they do? They kept quiet. So I tried it in all age groups and all different environments. That even when you wake up somebody in the deep sleep and ask them their gender, they will not fault at it. You wake somebody up, they may be irritated with you, but they don't have any confusion. You ask them, what gender are you? Wait, let me think. There is no confusion. The awareness or the knowledge of what gender I am, do you do a nitya abhyasa? Every day morning, 10 minutes you breathe, do pranayama and then sit down and then say, I am Purushaha. I am Purushaha only. I cannot be Stri. Do you do any such tapas or puja or japa? No. It is the awareness that you are that at a physical level. Now at a spiritual level, this aham saha is not a japa process to be repeated, but it is the pure awareness that I am that effulgent self within. That is what is the Upanishad referring to. And that is the very nature of Paramatma. On a different level, Hamsaha also means a swan. it seems that the swans have this amazing capacity to do the Nira Kshira Viveka. So you may give them 1 liter of milk but mix it with 2 liters of water. It will leave behind your 2 liters of water and drink that 1 liter of milk. You can calculate it. I have not experimented it, but I will believe whoever has said that experiment. It may be